The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is definitely a different Zelda game than we have ever seen. From the time you pick up your first weapon at the Great Plateau to your taking on Ganon in your final offensive against the Dark Beast, we see a new type of game evolve before us. One where we tackle fearsome beasts, solve complex puzzles utilizing the physics and realities of the game, searching for hundreds of collectibles in order to power up our hero during his adventure, and even deal with merchants with strange and rare currencies that offer us unique items with strange and unique benefits. Honestly, there's never been anything quite like it in the realm of Zelda. And as we tackle these puzzles, we have to wonder, what exactly is next for Breath of the Wild? There's so much that has been done with this game already. Implementing every type of rune, power, and ability, not only to solve puzzles, but to fight the game's most fearsome beasts. We also see differences in the fact that we have to tackle these beasts and collect loot, which is something very, very new for a Zelda game, and something very, very new for many Zelda gamers. The biggest part of that is that Breath of the Wild features an end game, which is not something that's been done in a Zelda game before. Despite having unique powers granted by armors, weapons, abilities, and things like that, we also see that the game has us grinding for loot, exploring the vast open world in order to capture everything inside of it. Everything from taking weather into account to utilizing the proper gear for whatever scenario we might be facing tells us that we are inside of a different beast, a different animal that we have to conquer. Now, the most exciting thing about this to me is that Breath of the Wild, despite having a very formal ending, also leaves everything very open for new adventures. And again, we want to make sure we're going to explore those properly. If you're not familiar with endgame, endgame is a point in any game where once you've done the main challenge, the main quests, in this case defeating Ganon, you proceed to do more, to collect more of the collectibles, to find more weapons, more armors that grant you more and more power and unique abilities. And just because we've defeated Ganon doesn't mean that the game is finished. There are still tons of areas to explore, very scenic locales. And for me, as someone who's spent roughly between 170 and 200 hours in game, taking that time to finish side quests, do the shrine quests, power up my character more, is something I never expected to see from a Zelda game. And personally, I'm really, really excited, because what this means is that you gathering materials, farming rupees, farming dragon horns, farming Lionel guts, farming weapons, armor parts, upgrades to get from the fairies, means for a much more enjoyable experience. It gives you more to do after the main quest, which is not something we've seen with Zelda before. Once you beat the game, usually the game is over. You've done everything. Maybe you didn't get all the Skulltulas and Ocarina of Time. Maybe you didn't get all the bottles. Maybe you didn't get all the masks in Majora's Masks. But here we see a progression of power. We have the ability to defeat enemies and gather more and more and more powerful weapons, despite not necessarily needing them right now. And what that tells me is that Nintendo has a grand plan for Breath of the Wild. That they're going to release expansions. The expansions are going to contain bigger, badder enemies, scarier monsters for us to fight. As of right now, we see the scariest monster in the game probably being the Lynel, especially the Silver Lynel. Very fearsome beast with a number of attacks that cause a lot of damage. But imagine later they bring back other enemies, say, from the original Zelda game. Maybe a Dark Nut. A great armor-covered knight with fearsome attacks and very little vulnerability. That could be a fight that would be very exciting, and especially for people who have spent all this time, say, gearing up with savage Lynel crushers and ancient blades and savage Lynel bows with 5-shot bursts. Those enemies could become tough again and something to conquer. Now, we don't know exactly what Nintendo has planned for the expansions, but what if they created even more fearsome foe than the Lynel, than the Hinox, than anything we've seen in the game so far? Having the ability to grind up, collect even more powerful weapons, bows, shields, armors, takes us from that simple adventurer in the beginning to a traveler and warrior who's willing to fight anything and explore anywhere that Hyrule might have to offer. And just imagine, guys, if we were able to fight more fearsome enemies than Ganon down the line. We might be able to fight a reincarnation of Majora, Vati, Twin Rova, Onyx, any one of which could be attempting to revive Ganon later down the line, which to me creates an interesting way to drive the story and drive player progression. And player progression is the one thing that we have never really seen in Breath of the Wild. We always see it that Link collects all of the necessary materials in order to defeat Ganon, does so when the game is over. Yeah, maybe there's some collectibles left over, but here, even after that, we have enemies to fight and new gear to gain that is stronger than anything we have so far. And to me, as someone who has recently become a fan of the big MMO style player progression games, Borderlands, Destiny, Warframe, and World of Warcraft, that excites me. And as a Zelda fan, that excites me too. Having an endgame present. The idea that we can fill this world that Nintendo has created, that they can fill this world for us with more enemies to conquer, more challenges to face, and that we have a game that's constantly expanding and growing is the most exciting thing I've ever thought of as a Zelda fan. And to me, that's what makes Breath of the Wild so amazing. The fact that Nintendo has created this amazing, awesome adventure for us and now has the opportunity to include DLC, expand on it, let us explore more of this amazing world of Hyrule that they've created for us, see more details and things about the world, meet more characters, and even fight more enemies that we didn't get to see in this game, or better versions, bigger guardians with more complex mechanics, things like Dark Nut, Poe, that weren't included so far. Hopefully we can see all of these things. Personally, I would love to fight Peahats out in Hyrule Field. And maybe that's just me personally, but I think that with the adventure that we have so far, the future of Breath of the Wild is bright, and we're going to see a lot of content coming from future DLC expansions. Now, guys, as always, make sure you let me know what you think in the comments, and like and subscribe if you like the content here. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and Twitch, guys. Links are in the description below. Again, this is Rod, and I hope to see you soon.